Hello everybody, hope you're all doing okay. We'll just start at 5 past like we normally do. We'll just wait for everyone to get on so we can start the stream. And then yeah, we'll get started. So just to let you guys know, it'll start at 5 past like it normally does. Here we go. Hello everybody, let's just wait for everyone to trickle on in and then we'll get started. Hi there, Adam. Welcome back. I recognize your name because I've seen you a few times. Hope that you're doing well. If you wouldn't mind telling me how your week's been. Oh, and just to let you know, we're starting at 5 past like we normally do. Okay, just to let you guys know, as always, we're starting at 5 past, so we've got a few more minutes before we get started with today's session. Adam says, my week was good, thanks. How was yours? Yeah, mine's been pretty good. I'm getting ready for my exams, and I think a lot of you guys will be getting ready for your mock exams or your prelims. So hopefully these sessions will help you out with that. Are you studying for mock exams at all, Adam? At the end of the school year. Oh, okay. Fair enough, fair enough. So you're not covering it this time round. That's pretty nice. I know a lot of people have to do their mock exams in January, I think. So for some people, it's a bit closer than they would like. Okay. We'll wait a few more seconds just to start and then we'll get on our way. Hope everyone can hear me alright as well. Alrighty, that is 5 past, so we'll get this started. So, first of all, welcome everyone back to my tutor coding squads. This is week 8 of the coding squads. So I had a look a bit about what we were covering from the last few weeks and what we were about to cover. And I noticed that a lot of people would like to do a lot of programming, but would like to do programming more focused on the GCSE. So we're still doing programming, still doing a lot of game-oriented programming, but this is going to be more aligned with the GCSE, right? This is going to be more suited to those who are doing GCSE or A-level. So we're going to stick to more of those topics, but hopefully it should still be enjoyable. So hopefully everyone will still enjoy what we're doing. So, what are we covering today? Well, as always, we'll do a recap of last time, just for those who weren't here, so they can have a chance to catch up. And today, we're going to look at a very important part of programming, which is covered in both the GCSE and the A-level, which is object-oriented programming. We're going to be looking at how to create classes, what methods and attributes are, And if we have any time, we might even look at inheritance and polymorphism. Those are more kind of A-level, higher, advanced higher kind of topics, but maybe we'll get around to them, who knows? And of course, as always, we'll do a fun activity. So, what did we look at last time? Well, we looked more into Pygame Zero. We looked at adding backgrounds and shapes and actors and very interactive elements. It should give you a bit of a taste of the kind of things that you might want to do in your programming project as part of your GCC. And yeah, we looked at creating your interactive mini games, and that is definitely a path that you can take. But we are going to go on to day 8 and look a bit more into kind of object-oriented programming and stuff like that. First of all, has anyone ever heard of object-oriented programming before? Has that ever come across anyone's radar before? Okay, this expert says no. Fair enough. Has anyone else heard of it? Someone else who says mo. I'm guessing they meant to type in no. There we go. No. So no one's heard of it before. Brilliant. That means it all the more for me to teach you. So, currently, in a lot of your programming, you do this thing called monolithic programming, right? Where you start out your first line of code, and then you go to the next line of code, and then the next line of code, and then the next line of code, and it goes on down as you go on. Sometimes there might be a little bit of swapping between lines with if statements and for loops, but it's very kind of sequential. Then we looked at something called functions, which is a bit less sequential. You break up your program into different functions, and then you can call them throughout the program. So then the program starts going everywhere else. Object-oriented programming is kind of like an extension of that, where you start to use classes to represent objects in your program. So let's have a look at that a little bit further. So, first of all, what is object-oriented programming? So, basically, it's a way of linking data to functions, and it basically turns everything in your program into an object. And it's basically a way of being able to model any kind of environment that we're working in. So we can create these physical objects, like we can create characters or cars or objects, and then we can submit attributes and methods to them. It's a little bit stranger when you first hear about it. You're like, what's an object? What's a class? But as we start to create them, hopefully it will start to make more sense. So I've mentioned the words objects and classes before, but let's have a look into a bit deeper about what these actually are. So objects contain data about their states or attribute, along with functions that operate on these objects, and these are called methods. And then the classes are a way that we can describe a family of objects. For example, I've put an example here. A class might describe a chair. So this chair might have various attributes like color, position, orientation, design, etc. And then it might have various methods attached to it, such as, is the chair pushed under? Is the chair vacant, etc. And you'd have a look at these attributes and return values accordingly. This is quite an abstract way of looking at it, but when you start to use it, it will make more sense, I reckon. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be creating a character class. So, when you create video games, you create lots of different characters, such as like an RPG, right? And lots of these characters can be controlled by either the player or a computer. And most of the code for each of your characters are going to be pretty identical. So I've come up with this class name. I'll move my head out of the way because you can't really see it. There we go. Of a class with attributes such as name, health, age, position. These attributes would be assigned to both players or computer-generated characters, and then you have a lot of different methods like how do you feel, where are you, how old are you, And these are methods that would return values based on that character. Before I move on, do we have any questions on what I've just said? No? Well, okay. I didn't realise I explained that pretty well. Alright, what we're going to do then is we're actually going to try and program a class and an object. So I'm going to use Replit today. If you guys have a different one that you want to use, feel free to use that. But I've got Replit up, and I'm going to create a Python templated REPL, and I'm going to call it my tutor day 8. But again, if you have a different way of programming, that's fine. You do you. You code how you want to code. So my REPL's just booting up, but when you guys are ready to continue, just let me know. Oh, I've just typed something in there. So just, as I said before, when you guys are happy for me to continue on, just let me know. I'll wait one more minute and then I'll start to code. Okay, I will start coding. If you guys need me to slow down at any point or you have any questions at all about what we're doing, feel free to shout them out, but we're going to start to create that character class that I showed you in the little block diagram from before. So to start a class, you use the reserved word class. You can tell that it's correct because it shows up in a blue color. And then you can give your class a name. So I'm creating a character class, so I'm going to call it character. And then to end it, you give a colon. So that's how you start a class. Now I'm going to give it some attributes. So as I showed before in the presentation, hang on, there we go. If it will even show up. Hang on. No. There we go. From the presentation, there were 4 different attributes: name, health, age, and position. So we're going to create those like we would create any other variable. So for this, I'm not going to set a name at the start. So I'm going to say name equals blank, so 2 speech marks because it's a string. Then I'm going to create the health. I'm going to create the health to be a number. I'm going to say that the health is 50, but you can do whatever number you want. I'm going to give their age, so their age is going to be 21. And then I'm going to give their position, because that was the last attribute. And I'll give it as kind of like an XY coordinate. I'm imagining this as being kind of like a 2D RPG world. So I'm going to say their positions at 3 and 4. So now that I've got their attributes, now I'm going to add in the methods that I created. So I created 3 methods. One was, how do you feel? I'm going to write the word self. I'll explain self in a sec. And then for this one, the how do you feel, I'll be like, if their health is above a certain value, they're feeling good, but if not, they're not feeling so good. So I'll say, if self.health. Oh, someone's asked, do we not import pgzero first or something like that? Not for this part of the course, no. Good question. In previous sessions, we've used pgzero to create Pygames. Currently, we're not creating a Pygame, we're just going through some class material on object-oriented programming and classes. So for this part, you do not need it, but that was an excellent question. Where was I? Yep, so if self.health is less than, say, 10, then they'll print fine, thanks. And then if not, I'll say that they're not feeling so good. So these are all connected to this character. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a sec. Does anyone have any questions on what I've just done? Or are we all good to continue? Okay, I'm seeing no questions, so I'm just going to carry on and create all the other functions that I had on the PowerPoint for my character here. So I had another one, which was, where are you? And this will just print out the position of the character. I'm putting self there. I will explain self, don't you worry. Yeah, this all looks lined up to me. And then I'll print I'm at blank, and I'll use dot format to put the position on there. Self dot position. Yep, and then I'll make one more function, which will be asking them how old they are. And then you'll print I am years old dot format. Oh. Self dot age. So we've got ourselves 3 functions here. One asking them how they feel, one asking them where they are, and one asking them how old they are. And these are all included in our character class there. Don't worry, we're going to improve this in just a little bit. So, before I move on, are there any questions? Alrighty, I will carry on. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just type them in the chat, stop me in my tracks, and I will try to explain what's going on here. So we're currently creating our class character, but if we run this program, nothing is going to happen. We haven't told it to do anything. So next what we're going to do is we're going to create an object that's a character. And we can do that by calling what's known as the constructor. So that's a special method that every class has, which creates an instant of that class, sometimes called an object. And we can do that like this. So I'm going to create an object and I'm going to call it me. And I'm going to make that equal to character, which is the name of my class. Making sure there's an open brackets and a closed brackets at the end. So what this here does is it creates a character object and assigns it to the variable that's me. Now if I want to set a value to that part of the object, such as the name for example, I can do it like this. So let's say I wanted to create my character and I want to give it the name, I don't know, Ed Sheeran. Oh, scroll back there. There we go. I've now created a character and I've given him the name Ed Sheeran. And what I can do now is I can use this dot notation to call the methods in that function in the class as well. So let's say I want it to print the health of my character. I know that the health is always set to 50 as like the default value. So if I say print self.health, it's going to print out. Oh, hang on. What have I done? Oh, wait. No, I meant me.health. It's going to print out 50. If I say run the method me.where are you? It's going to run this function here. And it will say, I'm at 3, 4, because that's the default position that we set for our character. And that's how we can start to use objects and classes. If you run the code, you should see the outputs and the methods of each of them being called. So that's how classes and objects work. Now, about all this self business. So you might have noticed that each time that we use these functions inside of our character class, we use the word self. Even though it seems to be that we have no arguments at all. We don't supply anything here. This is because in the background, Python uses some, call it trickery, to transform the thing that is before the dot. So into the argument, into the value that's passed as a self argument. So we don't need to do anything other than make sure that the self is in the correct place. It also means that we can access all these things, all these attributes inside the class in a way that like global variables work. So we can use all this self.name, self.age within all these methods here. I could explain into that further if you want, but I believe that's kind of outside of the scope of the course. All you need to do is remember to put these selves in after every single method, so you can use all of these variables. Alrighty. So that is a big overview of classes and objects and how to use them. Before I make any improvements to our project, do I have any questions? If you don't have any questions, by the way, feel free to type in the chat and move on, and then I'll move on. Okay, I'm assuming that everyone's just either coding away, trying to copy this stuff up. I realized that I can type pretty fast, which is a problem, because it means that a lot of people can't catch up with my typing speed. So I'm guessing you're either typing your work, or you have no questions, in which case I will just move on. So we've got our character class all sorted out here, but there is an improvement that we can make using now it's a weird name, but it's called a dunder init method. I'll explain. So when we call this character to create an object, we're actually calling a special method of the class, and this is called the constructor. So normally when we pass values to the constructor, which we then assign as attributes, as well as creating any other attributes, we use a particular notation for this constructor, and it's good practice to use it, and this is called init, like initialize, but it's prefaced with 2 underscores at the start and at the end of it, and this is before the brackets, so it's pronounced dunder init, which is short for double underscore. So we're going to add those in now. So I'm going to get rid of the current variables, attributes rather. We are going to use them in a second, but I'm just going to get rid of them for now. So we're going to create our dunder init method as shown here. So you start like you would any other method with the def, and then you do 2 underscores, then init, and then 2 underscores again, and then you put self in it, in the brackets rather. Then, inside the actual dunder init class itself, you can start to add in all of your values again. So I can do self.name equals self.position equals, I'll do 3/4 for now, I'm going to change that in a sec, self.health equals 50, and self.age equals 21. Now looking at that, you're probably thinking, Fliss, you haven't changed anything. It looks exactly the same, just you've added a other function in it. Well, we can do some funky stuff with this function. When we call our character here, we're not telling it to have any special default values. However, let's say we wanted to make sure that every character created has a name and a position when it's created, not a default one, it has to have its own specific one. We can do that using this method class here. So if I wanted to make sure that every new character had its own name and its own position, I can require that in this class here. And I can say that self.name has to be name and self.position has to be position. That way, when I create this character at the start here, it's not going to be very happy. It says it's missing 2 requirements. It's missing a name and it's missing a position. It's not a full character yet because of this part here. But if I were to add these 2 parameters, arguments, whatever you want to call them, let's say my character's name is Ed Sheeran, and he is at position 2, 5. It's now going to allow me to create that. And now it's happy with it. It's cool. This also means that we can add other characters. So we can change this to be character 1, but we can have more than one. So I can have character 2, and that can be a character. And I can set that to be whoever I want. for example. So what I've done here is I've created 3 different characters and given them default values. What's good about this is that I can then use any of these functions for any of these characters. So let's say I wanted to find out where Superman is. I could say char3 dot where are you, and it will print out where Superman is. And I haven't had to write out any other functions or anything else. I can reuse my same class stuff again and again and again. And that's why we do it. And let's say I wanted to find out where Batman is. I just have to change that, and now I know where Batman is. Pretty clever. So that is the basic gist of classes and objects. I'm going to take a breath here, because I need a breath. Before I move on, are there any other questions? Anything you guys want to ask me? Some of the stuff can be quite confusing, so it's always good to just check to make sure everyone knows what's going on. Okay, it seems like no one's got any questions, so I'm going to move on in just a sec. I'm just going to give everyone a few seconds just to kind of catch up and make sure they understand. Alrighty, I will move on then. I'm going to move on to the extension stuff. If anyone else has any questions that they want to ask about how any of this works, or how you use functions, how you use classes, how you use objects, feel free to ask. But we are going to look into something a little bit more difficult. I will warn you, this stuff is more related to the A-level / higher stuff. I've looked at a few GCSE things. I think it's briefly mentioned, but nothing more than a simple, this is what it is. But it may be good to understand it in a programming sense. And that's the thing that we're going to look at is inheritance. So we're going to change this around slightly. We are going to, this character class that we've created before is going to become a base class. And then we're going to create 2 new classes which will inherit from this class, inheritance, and these can be referred to as either child classes or subclasses. We're going to create 2 subclasses. There'll be a player character class, which is controlled by the player, and then a non-player character class, which will be controlled by the computer. So like an NPC, basically. So first, we need to create the base class. So we're going to edit our current character class just a little bit. So we'll show you how to do that now. So with our character class here, everything pretty much the same as before. I'm just going to write at the top using what they called words. I can't even remember now, that's really bad. Comments! Using comments. I'm going to write a base class so I know which one mine is. I'm also going to add another method as well to this. I'm going to call it speak. I'll explain why I do that in a sec, but this method is going to be called speak. self, and it's going to print you say. Can you guys all see the screen okay? I'm not covering the screen too much, am I? Can you guys all hear me? I'm not getting any kind of responses at all from the chat, which makes me nervous and think that you guys can't hear or see me, or that something's going wrong. Okay, we got one message in the chat. I'm glad at least the thing is working. Okay, I'm guessing everyone was just really concentrated on the material. That just made me very nervous. I didn't hear anyone. But I'm glad that things are working. Okay, so as I was saying, we have our base character class. It's exactly the same as before. So now let's try to create our class of our player character. So I'm going to, because I have Replit open, I can fold the lines, so it means that everything inside there disappears for a little bit. Just to let you know, it's all still there, you just can't see it. So I'm going to create this subclass. Sometimes it might be called a child class, depending on which GCSE you're taking, or A-level even. So I'll just write that as well. But yeah. To set up a child class or a subclass like before, you do it in the exact same way as a base class. You start with the word class, and then you give it the name that you want to call it. So I want to call it player character. But in this time, instead of writing self, we're going to write character. The next part is we are going to need to create the initializer. So we're going to write def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, and we're going to have the same values that we want to be added to our characters as before. So we're going to say self, we want them to define a name, and we want them to define a position. Now, rather than having to write out all of the other attributes from our base class, there's a simpler way of us being able to do it, and that is called super. Super just lets us add in everything already, no coding required. So I can write the word super, open brackets, close brackets, and that will copy, if you like, all the other stuff from the base class. So dot underscore underscore init name position. Oh, it even came up with it there. However, we want this class to be slightly different from the base class. So what we're going to do is we're going to override a method. Specifically, we're going to override the speak method. So currently, if a character tries to speak, they're going to say, you say, Let's say I create a character. I'm going to call him me equals player character. I'm going to say I'm Jon Snow, and I'm a 3-2. If I get Jon Snow to currently speak, he's going to say, you say, like I said. However, if we want our player characters to say something different, let's say we want to give our players a little bit more control. In our player character class, we can write def speak, which is the same function from the base class, but this time we can make the character speak instead. So I could say, I want you to input a message what do you want to say? And then I can return that back to the character. I can say print you dot format message. Now, if I run the program, it's not going to say you say this time. Have I done something wrong? I did. Huh? I did the wrong form of brackets. There we go. Hopefully this will work. What have I done? Where have I messed up? That all looks correct to me. Equals message, what you want to say, input, you say. Oh, hang on. Huh, I'm missing a bracket. There we go. That's why that wasn't working. Sorry about that. Let me just create Jon Snow again. And I'll set his position again. So this time, if I ask the character to speak, instead of saying you say it's now going to actually give my character a choice of something to say. So it will run, what do you want to say? I want to say hi, for example. You say hi. What we've done here is we've taken the function from the base class, you say speak, and we've overridden it. We've taken it and we've decided to do something else with it. And that's what you can do with children classes, with subclasses, is that you can take old stuff from the base classes, but you can also override methods. You can do different things with it. And we're going to look at that again with the non-player class. But before I move on, are there any questions? Okay, I don't think there are any questions for now, but if there are questions later on, just feel free to jump them out. So we'll make another child class, and this will be the NPC child class. And we're going to take it from the character class as we've done previously. So you can have multiple child classes, if you will. So I'll start just as I have before, and I'll call this one non-player character. And I'll give it the character instead of self because I want to take it from the base class. And I'll set up the initializer function, the dunder init, with all the same stuff that we had before. I want to make sure the name and position are set. And to make sure that I'm borrowing from the base class, I'm going to write super dot underscore init name position. Now, in the previous child class, we saw how you can override methods, But you can also add other attributes that the base class doesn't have. For example, let's say that we wanted our non-player classes, our non-player characters even, to go through a series of messages of what they're going to say. Well, that's not currently included in our base class, but we can add it in the child class, and I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So let's say we wanted an attribute, which is just a list of messages of what our character could say. So I'll make a list of 4 messages. I got a message that says what we're learning today. We are learning object-oriented programming. We're learning how to make classes and objects in Python comment. So, where was I? Oh yes, creating messages. So, I could make my NPC say things like defend yourself and are you sure that's the right one? Or I'm not so sure that's correct, player. You can come up with stuff that NPCs say. They do just say a lot of rubbish most of the time. But we can add that, and that's not even in our base class. We can also then use these messages, this attribute, in another function. So this time I'm going to override the speak class again. So I'm going to write def speak. And then this time I'm going to override it again, but this time I'm going to get it to print a random choice of self.messages. So what's it going to do this time is it's going to take this list of messages and print out one of them randomly. Cool. So what we've done so far is we've created 3 classes. We've created a base class, which our character is all based on with our attributes and methods. And then we've created 2 children classes. We've created a player class, which borrows all the stuff from the normal character class, but also has some few things of their own, aka they've overridden one of the methods. And we also have a non-player class, which has also overridden the method. And if I create a non-player character, an NPC, I can say equals non-player character, and I could say my character is called. Just do my name. I've lost creativity. Can't think of anyone else. I'll go with me, and I'll say that my position is at 9911. I'm an NPC, and if I want my NPC to speak, I can say speak, and it will print out a random message. Oh, well, it should. I've done something wrong there. Hang on. Whoops. I haven't overridden it properly. I'll figure out why that's not working in a sec. But that's the general gist of it. That's really strange. I'll figure that out. While I figure that out, is there any questions on how child classes work and how they can borrow from base classes and inherit stuff, but also override stuff as well? Are there any questions on that? Any questions at all? No? Okay, I will quickly wrap up what we did today then. So, just to kind of show you what we did today, we looked at object-oriented programming and classes. Oh, whoops. And there's the classes back. Whoopsies. What was I saying? So, what we did today is we looked at object-oriented programming and creating classes. We looked at classes are a way of one way in which we can describe what a family of objects will look like. We looked at how we can add attributes to a class, which for our character class were things like name, position, health, age. These are attributes that we give our object. And we also looked at methods, the way that they interact with stuff. So things like how do you feel, where are you, how old are you, and speak. We then looked at what's the difference between a base class and a subclass. So a base class is the parent class, and the subclasses are like the children classes, which inherit from the base class. They can take all of the attributes and methods from them, but they can also override them as well. And this can be really, really useful for lots of different forms of programming. That was basically everything I wanted to cover today. Are there any other questions on what we've covered today, or yeah, just in general, the Python programming course? If you've got any questions on programming or how to do the Python or how to do the GCSE in computer science, now is your time to ask. I've done both GCSE and the A level, so if you've got any questions or want any tips on how to pass your exams, I'm here for the next 5 minutes to answer your questions. But if not, I will see you guys next time. So yeah, like I said before, if you've got any questions on everything that we've covered today, or yeah, any kind of Python stuff in general, now's the time to ask. If not, you guys feel free to jump off, and I'll see you guys next time.